Alright guys, it's Friday, and on Fridays it's my chance to be a little bit more unstructured with the video content and talk you through a bit more about my own experiences from trading, whether this was when I was learning how to trade, from my day-to-day trading, or now from teaching people how to trade as well. Now this one's a bit late in the day and it's been a long week, that's why there's been only a few videos this week, because basically we've been finalising a free course that we have coming out next week, and I'll tell you more about that next week, but that's why my voice is a bit fried. But the whole process of putting together a course brings back certain lessons that I've actually taken on board that I wanted to pass over to you as well. Because there's some important things we try and do on this channel. So the first thing is obviously trying to teach you how to trade, to teach you the tools and the concepts, to go through technical analysis like we do every week on a Sunday, so that you can understand what you need to do in the markets. The other is to try and decipher certain news events and fundamental factors and what this means for the markets, so you can get a wider view of things, going through the history of the financial markets or the history of charting and various other things that might not seem so relevant, but they're all adding to this knowledge that you'll have so that you're able to navigate the markets easier and better, because trading is one of these things where you have this grey area a lot of the time. Like, you can learn things as a surface level, you can learn the tools and concepts, and a lot of people understand the sort of surface level stuff and think they know about trading, and then they're confused when their performance doesn't match what they would expect it to do after learning all these tools and stuff. And the reason is because you have to understand trading deeply. You need to understand the tools and concepts deeply enough that when you're in a situation that you're not familiar with, you still understand the logic and the process behind everything, that you know what you should be doing. So this brings me on to the learning aspect, and that's something we try and get across on this channel. It's not just teaching you about trading, but also teaching you how to learn in a quicker and more efficient way and a deeper way. And so this is what we tried to get across months and months ago when we had the Great Trader series. We talked you through the different things you need to do to become like a master level or a great level at whatever it is you're learning, some sort of complex skill, whether it's trading or something else. And people really seem to love that series. I love that series. I also love the follow-up videos about things like deliberate practice. And it seems like people have really embraced deliberate practice and now understand that they need to do that. It's not good enough just to get chart time, but you need hours upon hours of this focused, deliberate practice, really focusing on certain aspects of your trading and understanding the tools and concepts deeply. I keep saying deeply because it's so important. And now I want to build upon that, and I want to show you or talk you through some things that I've learned from teaching about trading. So things that I've learned from myself teaching and things that I've learned from seeing other people develop that I think you could really take on board to progress much quicker and understand trading deeper, to say it again. So when I look at the people that are learning with us, and we have this forum where people can go and share ideas and share analysis and get feedback and chat about trading, and I say the majority of people don't use it. I think some people are voyeurs and they go and look at what everyone else is doing, but they don't get involved. But the people I see really progressing are the ones that are engaging on the forum, making use of it, posting their analysis, getting feedback on it, but also providing feedback to other people. Now this is key. So there's a few things I want to talk about related to that. The first thing is how important it is to engage in active learning. This means not just taking notes of what you're learning, but to actually participate, to answer questions, to ask questions, to try and predict what's going to be happening in terms of the lesson that you're learning and really engage in it. It's like when we're back at school, most people sat there and kept silent in class. If you're like me, you probably talked to the person next to you and got told off and kicked out of class half the time. But the people that put their hands up, asked questions and engaged were usually ones that perform better in relative to their potential. So of course you'll get the really studious types that are silent in class, but they go home and hit the books, and they're obviously going to get really high grades. But you might get people who aren't so naturally gifted or aren't so inclined to read books and study, but in class, because they were active, because they were putting their hands up and engaging, they reached so much more of their potential during that term, during that module, whatever it was. And this is something that can happen with trading as well. If you read the books, if you study what you're doing, if you practice on the charts, then of course you're going to get from here to here. But if you engage in active learning, you're going to increase it so much more because you retain a lot more of what you're learning. And that's important when I say about learning things deeply, because then when you're in these situations in the market where it's maybe some context you haven't been involved in before, let's say there's a market crash happening and you haven't experienced that before, or there's a certain activity happening, or there's a certain situation with your trade that you haven't been involved in before and you've never read it in a book or seen it on a course or anything, because you've done all of this sort of active participation before, you'll remember certain concepts that you can apply to that situation and get through it much better. So based on this, the next thing is that it's not just important to engage in active learning and to post your feedback and to really like push yourself. And when I say push yourself, I mean like you might not understand much about the tools you're using, but you really try and get involved and get feedback on it, whatever stage you're at. That's active learning, that's fine. But also you can actually start providing feedback to other people, which basically means you're becoming the mentor, you're becoming the teacher, in a controlled environment, or in an environment where someone knows you're not the expert. So I don't mean like you just start learning and you don't know things properly, but you start your own YouTube channel, start teaching people. I mean like teaching people within what you understand. So if there's something that you first started learning, you can actually go and help other people. There's a couple of ways that this ties to techniques that I've become very impressed with. The first one is called the Shamrock plus minus technique. I believe it was spoken about in a book called Ego is the Enemy. It's basically an MMA fighter called Frank Shamrock. And he used to take an approach to learning where he'd go for a plus, which is where he would train with someone that's much better than him because he's going to learn from them and get challenged all the time. And I say that this is what you would do if you're like enrolling on a course or watching the lessons of things that you don't know. You're learning from someone that's been through it and then you're learning from that. Then there's the equal part where you're learning amongst equals. So on the forum, this is where course members are discussing their analysis and seeing what they've done right and wrong with people that know the same amount that they know, people that have completed the course, for example, or on these YouTube videos, talking to other people that are learning are at the same stage as you, because you have to be on your A game to discuss a concept that the other person knows as much as you do. And therefore, if you're wrong, they're going to say, no, you're wrong. And you want to get one up on them maybe sometimes. And then the minus is actually teaching someone who knows less than you. And so you can actually become the mentor, like I said, and start answering comments, for example. There are so many questions we get on YouTube where it's stuff that people can actually answer themselves, where it's basic things. And that's your opportunity to really learn properly. Because this ties into something called the fireman technique. Fireman was a very intelligent professor, very famous professor. I think he got voted the best teacher of all time or something. And just in very basic terms, the fireman technique was that the best way to learn something is to try and understand what it is, like whatever the complex subject is that you're trying to understand, quantum physics or something in trading, and to break it down in a way that will be easy for a kid to understand. So you're really breaking it down, watering down this subject, and so you have to really understand it deeply because you're breaking this topic down and explaining it, not in a way that you've already learned, like repeating it like a parrot, but actually putting it in your own words. And to put something in your own words, you have to understand what it is. And if you get questions back from that person, you need to know enough about that subject and not just the few bits that you've learned before to be able to answer those questions. Now, this is something that I found with my own trading, is that I had to go through a process, especially back in 2013 when we were working with someone on our trading system. I had to learn how to explain what I was doing. And it was from getting these questions thrown back at me that I had to really organize my thoughts and think, okay, what is it I'm trying to say here with what I've learned, with the tools that I'm using, the concepts that I'm using? How can I answer this question? I need to break down what I'm doing. And by doing so, you're understanding it deeper and deeper each time. And I see this happening on the forum when people start answering questions or explaining things in their own words. They're really starting to understand, the ins and outs of the concept, the ins and outs of the subject. And so the reason I was reminded about this week with the course that we're putting together, the free course, is because the topic is something that I first learned at university, but in a theoretical way. And then you learn it in a practical way just from day-to-day stuff. I don't want to ruin what the course is about, so I'm not going to go into specifics there. But I got to the point where when we're breaking down this course and we're trying to teach it to an absolute beginner, you start realizing how deeply you have to understand it in order to be able to do that. And so it's a good gauge of how much you know about the subject to say whether you can actually break it down in that way or not. So I think this is a really interesting thing that will help a lot of you to accelerate your learning, but to really understand the things that you're learning deeply and properly. And so I'm not condoning like going out and putting out lessons if you don't really know what you're talking about just for your own development. I'm not talking about taking on people as your mentees and mentoring them when you know that you're not actually at the level you should be at yet. The thing is, and I know there are a lot of like people that are, let's call them haters or whatever in the comment section, that will give people abuse for getting something wrong. But in general, this community is there because people want to help each other. You see in the comment section, people being encouraging, especially on our forum, people are being encouraging and helpful. So ignore the people that are, going to tell you off for saying something wrong, and just embrace this as a learning opportunity, a chance to progress quickly. And trust me, this will be the quickest way you can learn about trading and the best way and the best chance of succeeding over the long term. And I've seen it time and time again with people that have been learning from us. I've seen it with myself, with us putting out other courses courses, how much you really need to understand to be able to teach about it. And so, yeah, that's my experience now from teaching trading and seeing people progress. So if you like this video, please do hit a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments about the things I've spoken about, or you want me to clarify things, leave a comment in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos about the financial markets, trading, and so many other things, including the announcement for our free course next week. I'm looking forward to that coming out. But before then, have a great weekend, guys. Take care. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.